let's just do like 20 minutes of like really like trying to explain to your grandma what an NFT is and like why you're interested.
Well, I think that's a great way to kick it off. Like, why are these? If you were going to explain this to your grandma, I should do this on my wedding. Why are NFTs important?
What are you saying at your wedding?
I was like, I should probably try to explain to my grandparents like why NFTs are important, so they can really maximize their investment portfolio on the back end when I get married this year. That'll be
Okay.
my round robin topic of conversation.
I wonder if wedding NFTs are going to be a thing.
I think wedding NFTs are 100% going to be a thing.
It
Um,
makes sense, doesn't it?
well, it'd be such an easy way to. Wow, that'd be really cool. It'd be such an easy way to like kind of like have people commemorate it, do so in a digital way, kind of share it out and flex of like who's going where. And then even if you just kind of sold NFT like admission to your wedding, people wouldn't have to worry about like, what do I get them? Like, how much do I write? What is the gift? Everyone just kind of pays a flat fee. You're essentially like prepaying your wedding. Um, I should
You
talk to
could do the
Caitlin about this.
gifts. You could do like a percentage. You could do a DAO around the gifts, so like a certain percentage goes to like the build out of so that the quality of the food will be determined by by the investment that's made. And then the gifts that you get, you can have your gifts list there, and like that's going to get ticked off based on how much comes in. It's funky, but it's like you could see how it would actually be probably better as well, and how it could actually catch on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with that, man. And like, there's no more important, successful long-term project than a relationship. So I think it starts to tick all the criteria of what you're looking for and how you would use it.
I wonder what your ongoing stake in the marriage is then, if you buy the wedding NFT. Like, is it built into the DAO like a divorce thing of like how you divide up the gifts? And
Do you divide up people at that point? Do you just kind of like split the votership 50-50 and like these people go with the male, these people go with the female, or like whatever gender you are getting married?
yeah, it's
These are the
wild.
questions that like are actually going to have to be answered when somebody goes and does this, on how they want to execute on this, which is like, I think like it is really unique because it sounds funny in an aspect, but it shows like how applicable this stuff is to stuff that has been like as routine and standard as like getting married or like the ceremony around marriage.
Yeah, the advantage that it gives is like in simplifying the process.
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know how it plays out, to be honest, around the weddings. But I think for any business, every business wants more loyalty. They want more customer loyalty. So what is the path to customer loyalty? The path to customer loyalty is feeling as though they're cared about, feeling as though they can participate, feeling as though they're getting extra, some sort of extra benefits. The product actually being good, so if potentially being able to participate in the product being improved, like are these like what else is there in customer loyalty that you can see as like standout factors here?
So I think one that you didn't touch on that I think is big is differentiated benefit. The loyalty programs that I've seen work really well. They have this kind of like gamified tier and standard to them, to where the more you kind of commit to the business, the more you're rewarded. It allows the business to kind of establish a meritocracy almost in a very loose sense on kind of like the more you give, the more you get, which I think is a really interesting parlay into kind of how you would use that, because like you don't want everyone to be recognized if you've got these like absolute super fans that are out there like championing your brand, getting you tons of referrals, like being at every drop. You want them to get, I think, unique benefits that they wouldn't get elsewhere. And I think that's something a lot of companies struggle with. Having gone through stuff where I've consulted on some of the loyalty programs that Uber stood up, it is really hard to tier out benefits to the user in a really meaningful way, and do so in a way that motivates the person to commit more to the business. Because that's ultimately like what a loyalty program is doing. Like you were trying to better incentivize the person to use and to represent your product on an ongoing basis and do so more and more. So like when companies roll out loyalty benefits, they're really trying to say like, how can we make this product like more sticky? How can we increase the usage? At Uber, we do that through on the rider side, like maybe we gave like discounted rides, or for every like X amount of rides, you would get like a $5 rides credit or a $5 eats credit to try to better drive your behavior. But like, to be really honest, it was one of those things that like, it may have moved the needle a little bit, and they're redoing it with Uber One that a couple of my buddies are working on who are still there. And I think like, I'm excited to see like what that looks like, but it's really hard unless you can really provide a tangible benefit that the user actually cares about to get them to change their behavior via a loyalty program.
Yeah, I would say the vast majority of loyalty programs, people just write off as being like, yeah, like it's too high a target. Like you have to jump through way too many hoops, or it's too difficult to get to, and then like it's like a 0.01% or 0.5% return on a big investment. So it's like, yeah, I don't, you're going to attract like 5% of your members who care about that. Like,
yeah,
there'll be a percentage who always care about any discount they can get and want coupons for everything. But how can we how do you think NFTs are going to change that? Like, what is some of the innovation that you could see? How does NFT change that dynamic for loyalty that you can see?
I think the first and foremost is it provides meaningful reward and a way to scale more intimate rewards. Because like if you're a multi-billion-dollar company like Uber, it becomes very hard to, I think, scale very meaningful things. But I think what you're going to see a lot of NFTs pop up as far as the brand loyalty space, it's going to be smaller companies and smaller brands probably starting those at first and then kind of scaling those up. I know like we always reference Gary Vee, but like what he did with VeeFriends was that a really ability to like scale intimacy and connection with Gary in a way that you couldn't do otherwise, which therefore like is going to like tangibly increase brand loyalty from that person and them telling everyone else about it. Because like somebody's going to do that and they're going to have that like absolute wow customer experience, which is really like, if you take a step back, like any product or service, like that's what you're trying to drive towards. You're trying to drive towards that moment that the person goes through your system, your product, your service, and says, my life is tangibly different than it was before. And then you use that person as a proponent for that. So I think like you're getting people, you can use more specific and more tangible kind of relationship aspects to drive people to that magic moment and like establish a true fan.
And then there's opportunities to kind of, like I see what some of the guys are doing with their NFT plays of like badging people who show up to events. I think, again, Gary Vee, I think, is doing this where every live call that they have in their Discord, there's an opportunity then to mint a token. If you attended, then Discord knows and it's spoken to your MetaMask, and then you can go and mint something that says that you went. So if someone goes to a lot of things, they can hold a lot of those tokens, and then who's to say that Gary Vee is not going to airdrop a gift to the person who has the most event tokens, 2 years from now, 3 years from now.
Yeah.
Like, that's the funny thing about NFTs, where it's not necessarily what's happening now, but because data is being collected and trust is being built, there's opportunities to deliver rewards in the future. And the customer has there's more of a collective kind of nature to it. Like, even if there's a status thing that maybe it doesn't work for Uber, but I think it does work for other businesses where, the collecting sort of side of it, or the accumulative side of it, I think is going to be a huge part of why people stay with brands, because they're going to, not only have they bought the NFT, but they're accumulating like rewards and they're accumulating progress and they're banking on the future benefit of the actions they're taking now. So they're thinking more long-term about their customer behavior.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned the data aspect. And I think like that's probably the biggest. You were able to quantify I think previously unquantifiable, and start to put measures and processes towards that. Like when I interviewed for Uber the first time, one of the questions was like, hey, like how would you reward like drivers who have been like top drivers in their city? And for that, it was kind of walking through, okay, like what is my problem solving process? Like, how am I going to like rack, stack, and sort who the top driver is? Is it hours? Is it trips? But like to your point, it allows you to start to quantify, okay, like who in my customer base has showed up to all of my shows, has a very unique imprint on that. And because of the NFTs and like everyone holding those in their wallet, it's really easy to track. Um, we talked about Katy Perry last time, and I think that like that's actually a pretty good parlay to that. So if you are an artist, especially for like really big bands, you kind of develop this cult following, but it's really hard to know. Like you don't have the data on who attended all of your shows because that lives on so many disparate platforms, like maybe Ticketmaster or StubHub or some ticketing platform, assuming you bought them all on the same platform, which most people don't, has the data behind who attended what show, who's attended the most shows. Like when you start to implement this digital tracking that NFTs offer, you get so much more data about your customer fan base, which gives you two really unique things. One, you can better understand your fan base. What are the behaviors? Who are they? How can you better serve them? Number two, like you said, you can reward those people who are really standouts, who are groupies, who go to every show. You now have a way to like track, imprint, see who those people are, and bring them into the community to be a bigger voice.
If we bring that to my predominant audience, which is like people who go to the gym, or maybe gym owners, online coaches, then think about how you could actually incentivize to get results. Because I know, like I've spoken to guys who are doing really well in the online training business, but they're not necessarily getting really good data from their clients. If there was an incentive for people to give them better data, then they could potentially get much better case studies and know exactly who their best customers are and what amazing results they've had. And that can provide huge value to the business owner, and that allows the business owner to give massive value to those best customers and to encourage future customers to be best customers. Like this whole world of online training has been rather anonymous, and I would say probably largely unsuccessful, like with people buying programs and not doing them. Whereas I think we can gamify and micro reward and build status and all those things that we know that people respond to, that becomes much more tangible and clear. Okay, if like, this is this is a process, and this is a reward system that members are actually going to enjoy. I wonder how gyms actually do this. Gyms, the thing is that most commercial gyms don't want their members to go, right? Because if everybody goes, that everything bursts at the seams and everything wears out quickly, and it's not possible. So maybe that dynamic is different for like big commercial gyms, but maybe like for a CrossFit box, if this was an NFT system and if there was, it doesn't have to be that the membership is NFT and like, I'm not sure how that's going to work. Like there will be a play with subscriptions, like working in together with this stuff, but I still think a customer could have an NFT that's like recording their progress. I spoke to a guy in Australia actually who's doing this for powerlifting, where the powerlifting numbers are actually playing directly into your NFT. So it's kind of the stuff that I want to do with Uncommon Success, like how you can use the numbers. But if the gym had that system within that, maybe it's independent of like the gym membership, but it's every member still has their NFT card that's like, storing their data and rewarding them based on attendance, based on improvements in results. That data tracking piece, I know, has been like a huge challenge for a lot of gyms, and it's getting done to an extent. But would members want to track their own data much better if there was, if these feedback loops were set up around this? Like it does seem as though this is probably going to impact that space. What are your thoughts?
I think that's an interesting one. So I think like let's use CrossFit as a really good example of that. We could also delve into ATG as well. You have like one. So like let's take a step back. Like data collection is inherently hard at times. The more friction that exists in collecting the data, the less good data you are going to get. So it requires like you setting up a very robust system to collect the data and then making it as easy as possible to do that. It's something I've been going with round and round and round in the software that I'm building for coaches, is like, how do you reduce friction on the client side to collect data? So I think when you start to use something like an NFT for that, and like I haven't thought a ton about this, so I definitely, it's one of those things like all these podcasts, reserve the right to change my opinion 12 hours from now, a day from now. I think if you have a big brand like that, CrossFit is the example, you can start to track and rack stack and leaderboard in a way that is going to be, I think, much more simple than you did before. Because before that, like everyone is like inputting their numbers into a database, like that had to be a stored database, like within CrossFit. There are now a ton of people that like are CrossFit, aren't CrossFit, because everything that happened last year. But if you had an NFT that was storing all your data, you could literally create a leaderboard of like who's doing what where. You could start to geotag that of saying like who's training here. And it becomes this way to like, I think, really bring the community together based on like how you're performing against other people, how you're moving up the ranks. Like, even if you want to find a workout buddy, like who's geotagged like in your area, who's dropping by in your area when you're going to work out. So I think that like, I need to think through this probably like on a more like bigger whiteboard session. I think there's some really cool things you could do, but I think it's a way to like further bring the community together while providing like greater like visibility to that. So I think that like if you're part of that community, and a lot of them like are cool communities, CrossFit, ATG, etc., you're going to want your numbers out there, and you're going to want like everyone to see your progress. And I think it just becomes a way to like better measure that. And then from a more meta programming perspective, like how are people doing? Like how is the stuff you're putting out like actually working? Like, is it hitting the mark? Is it having the success rate that like you think it is supposed to have? Because if not, like you're wildly off base. So like just like it was the Uber example and like the artist example, the better you can collect data as a creator, the better stuff you can create. I mean, like with that, like being in the space for so long, like how are you kind of thinking about that?
Yeah, it's almost like it's almost like a different use for NFTs that I haven't seen yet, where there's potentially maybe there's no flipping game at all. You know, maybe it's just about you owning your data and your data being on your NFT, and you just carry that data with you wherever you play the game of CrossFit or ATG or Uncommon Success, whatever it is. That's kind of what I've asked my development team for. So, but I am planning on a number of tokens, but maybe today's conversation takes me away from that, where like the top level for sure is limited, but then the player level, maybe it doesn't need to be, and maybe it doesn't need to be limited, and maybe it's, you know, it's $25 or it's something that's like in the $250 to $25 range is what I'm thinking of the buy-in. So it's like really accessible. But then on top of that, you get a layer of your personal card, that whenever you hold that token, you know, you have that personal card. Now, I was thinking that if you wanted to trade your $25 to $250 token, then the top layer, the personal layer, would get burned, and then the other person would mint their own personal player card together with like the right of entry card that they bought. But yeah, for example, like in that, you know, in that CrossFit ATG example, like if maybe every new member gets a card, and then they keep that card for as long as they have an active subscription, or maybe they keep it forever and it just sleeps if they're not active. But there's something about, in effect, it's just data, but it's somehow sort of like personalizing it and allowing you to have it in your wallet, and, you know, allowing it to be accessed. So like if you've done 5,000 workouts, then you can get access to other things, or you get a different discount in the shop when you go to buy your t-shirt, or like there's other applications for success beyond, you know, is this a cool piece of art? Can I flip it? Because no one wants to buy your personal data for what you've done on ATG or Uncommon Success. Like, it's personal to you, it's your journey, it's valuable to you, but it's not valuable to someone else. Maybe this is like a kind of a different application in the tech space. Like maybe there's another thing that does this, but maybe this is actually what's coming with NFTs, and we're being introduced to the technology through like art and cool stuff that, you know, oh, this looks cool and we can make money on it. But it's sort of, it seems as though, I mean, it could be your Facebook profile, right? And everything that you do on Facebook is on that thing. And then, you know, it's yours, you know, so you can burn it, or you can, you know, you can edit it, but maybe people can see then that you've edited your own history, or you've taken, you know, whatever parts of your own history out. I don't know. This is one place, one application. And it's another layer for loyalty potentially as well, you know. So if someone has played hard and they've built themselves to a certain stage in the game, I think it's the same on some of the computer games, right? That you if you if you stop your subscription, then you lose your progress in the game, I think, on some of the games that are out there. So it's a similar kind of idea to that. I guess the NFT is more so around data ownership, and there's probably different ways that can play out.
Yeah, so I think the way, like, as we start to round it up for today, I think the way to start thinking about it, and what I'm trying to do is, like, from a first principles perspective, like, what can you do with an NFT or a smart contract? Where are things in the real world, digital world, et cetera, right now where that is being done, but not as efficient as it could be? Like we mentioned today, like, I think the biggest thread of today was like, how do you collect data on your users to better inform the user experience? Which goes back to what we talked about in previous podcasts about that transparency angle. But then I think the last thing I would kind of leave with is Web3 and NFTs are going to offer this decentralized model where, like, you kind of own your data. And I think it's been purported as being a big benefit to just creators. So, like, creators aren't going to, like, have to stick on one platform because, like, they're going to own their data. They can take things multiple places, et cetera. But with that, I would kind of say, like, start to think about it, not just from a creator standpoint, but from a user standpoint, like we talked about today with Uncommon, with CrossFit, with ATG, on how are users going to own their own data? How can they take that data with them? And how can they really, like, kind of hold everything in one place? Because I think when you start to think of, like, not just the creator, but the end user as well, you'll start to, like we did today, delve into some really neat use cases.
Yeah. It's just fascinating to see it unfold. And people keep saying to me, oh, just like, I'm so new to this. Like, we're all new to this. It's okay. Like, you don't need to know the answers. But I think the more we have these conversations and kind of come back to each other with things that, oh yeah, this guy's doing this thing over here, and wow, like, it's already happening. Like, chances are it's already happening in some way, but it's moving so fast that I'm really interested in that second layer kind of solution, that personalized thing. And can you take it with you, etc. So phenomenal conversation. I appreciate your time, and look forward to the next NFT catch up.
Let's do it, man. To everyone listening to this, happy holidays, and have the conversation, because, like, that's where ideas come from. And I think that's where you're going to learn the most.
Love it.